Hello, my peers. Last semester during my world history class, I was assigned a book report on a historical event of my choosing. I chose The Crusades, a book by Helen Nicholson. As I read it, I was thinking that the Crusades were not necessary and should have not have happened, with only bad things that came from it, like the death toll, the outcomes of the Crusades, and the effect that it had on Western Europe. To start with my disagreement of the Crusades, is the death toll, which was around 3 million people, but some historians say it could be upwards of 9 million that died trying to defend or take the city of Jerusalem. During the First Crusade, the deaths were between 60 and 100,000. That is the total population of the city of Athens that died during this conquest. Next, during the Second Crusade, the total number of deaths were between 30 and 60,000. That is 3 to 4 times the population of Jefferson in deaths. Then the Third Crusade, with the death toll of 150,000 to 250,000, that is the population of Salt Lake City. Lastly, the Fourth Crusade, with 50 to 100,000 deaths, which is the amount of people that can fit into SoFi Stadium. These are just 4 of the 9 crusades that have happened to seize Jerusalem. The amount of deaths for this one city is not worth having. I would like to quote Marshall W. Baldwin from the Britannica article, Crusades, which is, the disappearance of old families and the appearance of new ones can be traced in part to the Crusades. The loss of life was without doubt considerable. Each person that died had a family that they loved and they never got to see again. So my question is, why should we have done this in the first place? I get it, that it was for Christianity, but the means do not justify the ends. My next point is the outcomes of the Crusades. The First Crusade was the only successful crusade in the eyes of what Pope Urban II wanted the Crusaders to complete, which was take back Jerusalem. I can give it to the First Crusade leaders, who were Godfrey of Bouillon, Raymond IV of Tusslo, Mohammed of Tehran, and Admir of Le Poulet. They knew what they were doing and did a great job of keeping rank and completing their goal in making the county of Edessa, Principality of Antioch, the Kingdom of Jerusalem, and the county of Tripoli. Then the other crusades happened, and they all failed to complete the task of taking back Jerusalem. After Jerusalem's falling into the Muslims' hands in 1189, and the only close crusade to almost getting it back was during the Third Crusade, led by Richard I of England, Philip II of France, and Frederick Barbarossa I of the Holy Roman Empire. But they only got a treaty saying that the pilgrims to the city are allowed and won't be hurt. After the fall of Jerusalem, the amount of crusades that happened after was not at all worth the trouble. The Crusaders never saw victory at the end of each crusade, so why would they continue to keep going after Jerusalem? When they kept on losing people and resources, it just does not make any ethical sense to keep on fighting a losing war. To finalize my point, I want to talk about the impact that the Crusades had on the people living in Western Europe during this time. The Crusades were a very big endeavor. They were a war, and this war was happening for 200 years, and the impact that it had on the peasants was immense. The Crusades were expensive and led to higher taxes at home. This is a quote from the article, What Were the Consequences of the Crusades, by BBC News. This is a great example of what the people were going through. The regular people during this time were poor, and with this war, it strained their income more and more till many were starving or got kicked out of their homes. Also, the Crusades started a surge of anti-Semitism, with it surging more and more as the Crusades continue on. The estimated number of deaths that the Jews had because of the mobs was in between 5,000 to 10,000 Jews that got killed. On the other hand, some may argue, with the Crusades happening, trade was booming and new items were coming into Europe, and they're right, but the lower classes never got to see any of this, and only the upper ones got to. But the impact of the Crusades on Europe was not great enough to bear the outrageous atrocities that the lower class and Jews had to endure during this time period. Some people might ask, why are you talking about this? We can't do anything to stop the Crusades from happening. They already did, and I would say, I know, we can't stop them from happening, but we can learn from them. We can learn not to do this thing. We can learn from our mistakes to make sure that this atrocity never happens again.